right, it's JPEG Raw, show number 195, closing in on 200 before long, and closing in on our 6-year anniversary, Tim. Sometimes in June. I need to look it up and see when it is, but sometime in June. So June 6th is the day we're doing this, and tonight we have a guest I've been looking forward to having on the show, Scott Norris. And
how's it going, everyone?
Good, good. And I typically, before in the pre-show, run by my pronunciation of the name.
You didn't have to on this.
And then I get it wrong anyway, even after practicing. So I'm hoping with your name, which is fairly simple, that I got it right.
I always say it's Norris like Chuck.
Okay, so. Yeah, there you go.
But his first name is Scoot, not Scott, so you got that wrong.
Actually, my first name is actually Leslie, but Scott is my middle name. So,
well, Scott, welcome to JPEG Raw. We're glad to have you on tonight, and
glad to be here.
Yeah. And I just a heads up, I won't be here next week. My son is moving to, not moving, we're doing orientation at college as he gets ready to go off to college. So nothing next week, and then we'll be back the week after. But all right, so AD has talked a lot. AD Wheeler, a guest on this show a number of times and co-host with me over on the Photo Review Show, has been talking Scott. You know, he's really a big fan of Scott. So I have this master spreadsheet. I think at one time I might have shared with you, Tim. It's a master Google Doc spreadsheet that I've got all these names of photographers in it, and I've got any information I can find out about them, like links wise, like their website, their Facebook page, all this kind of stuff. And it's something I refer to, and I want to go and, when I'm going to book somebody, I go there and I check, send them an email, haven't done anything. So AD sends me, says, hey, you got to get Scott on the show. So I go out to my spreadsheet to put Scott's name in there to have him. All right, I need to go back to this. And you were already in there.
Oh, nice.
So I find that hilarious sometimes when I go in there to put a name in there, because I don't know how. I'm bad about tracking how I found somebody unless somebody sends it to me. But I had already had you in there, and I had a note to ask you to talk about something, an article. I must have found you from an article, but that's what it was. We'll come back to that later on, but that's how I think I had you in there.
It's intriguing because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, I'm probably building it up too much. We're going to be disappointed later on. But before we get into that, I wanted to ask you about your background, how you got into photography. What brought you to the world of photography?
I don't remember exactly when I became interested in it, like really interested in it, but I do remember in high school, when I started high school, I wanted to take photography. So I bought, my first SLR was a Canon AE1 program. This was in '82. And then I was hooked from then on. 4 years in the darkroom in high school, 4 years in the darkroom in college. My degree was photojournalism. In college, or journalism with a specialty in photojournalism. I realized early on that I never wanted to be a photojournalist. It just wasn't my style of photography. But I was living at home, and that was the only opportunity I had was to continue with photography. And a year after college, I still had access to the darkroom. And then when I lost the access to the darkroom, I said, okay, now I have to do something else because I can't really. I can't afford my own darkroom. So at the time, I said, I'll try going into television behind the scenes. Pardon me. Then I got the 3D animation bug. And for the last 25 years, I've been doing 3D animation, special effects, motion graphics, and things like that. And then I guess the early 2000s, I got my first little point-and-shoot digital camera, and that progressed to a Nikon D70 and then to a Nikon D700, and that's what I'm shooting now. And so I've been fully digital and really going strong for about 10 years, but it's really been the last 3 or 4 years that I've really kind of come into my own style. And you mentioned AD Wheeler, that I have to give AD Wheeler a lot of credit for getting me to the point that I am now. He's a fantastic teacher, and he's really good at bringing things that people already have inside, pointing it out and saying, you need to work on this. So that's kind of where I got to where I am now.
He is very good at giving positive reinforcement, positive feedback on images that sometimes I struggle to give that positive feedback. But he's really good at that. And when you and I were talking in the pre-show interview that we did a few days ago, we have a lot of this. It's not the same gear that we shoot with. I shoot with a D700 as one of my cameras too. Love that D700, and some of the other stuff. But you mentioned about 3D. You do a lot of 3D. I was watching some of your 3D stuff on YouTube. You have a few things up on YouTube with your 3D work, and I can't show it because it's got sound in it, and I'm afraid that I will get suspended off there.
The new sound that's on there is royalty free.
Okay.
So
it
shouldn't be an issue.
What I will do is I will post it into the show notes when we go to post this, that people can go over there and look at it. But it's some impressive work that you did over there, and sometimes I go, I can't believe you created this. So all that in that shot is something you created in those videos.
For most part, sometimes it's a mixture of live action with the animation. And one of the goals of doing animation, especially when you're mixing with live action, is for people to not see it and say, oh, that's 3D. You want them to see the story. And I guess it's the same thing with photography, is the story is the key. So my goal with any animation or motion graphics that I do is people not to see it and say that's motion graphics.
Yeah.
I want them to see the story, and everything else is secondary. I know I've done my job if they look at it and say, "What did you do?" I don't see it.
Yeah.
So.
The one of the ones where you had a mix, I think, was a school setting where the kid was eating something and they were like a little tornado and going around.
Oh, yeah.
That was real kids in there. So yeah, that was mixed good. And I remember one of them you had was a truck that came to a stop. I can't remember what the brand of the truck was.
That was probably was it a Ford commercial?
No, the Ford one was incredible with the Ford. So I know we're talking about stuff probably nobody here has watched, but I'm a Toyota fan. So, but I Ford's American, and I like Ford too. And it was a fingerprint or a thumbprint that you were zoomed in really tight on the. I'm telling you, but I'm telling everybody else who hasn't seen it, real tight on the thumbprint, and the thumbprint had the Ford logo there. And then it started peeling out away from that, and you see the guy with his hands on the steering wheel, and it comes out of that, and he's driving a Ford F-150 or 250, something like that.
Yeah, that was actually 3 shots. The original shot was a physical model that the client built that we shot with a motion control camera, and then the middle section was the 3D. And then the last of his thumb was the actual tight shot of his thumb.
Okay.
And then we'd use a lot of morphing and a lot of crazy techniques to get those to match, because the model that they built didn't match his fingerprint. So we had to do some work to get that to work. So,
well, I got to imagine that all that 3D work comes in and helps you out with your photography and all the work you do over there, right?
It does. I've been using Photoshop since version 1, because we started to work at that in the computer lab in my second or third year in college. I remember them taking us down to the lab and those little Mac SEs, the little floppy disk, and they said, we're going to do something different. We're going to do it all on the computer. It's this program called Photoshop. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. So it was several years after that I actually started working with it. But through the animation, Photoshop is a big part of that to build textures and things like that. And I think it gave me a different perspective, because with the 3D, I'm creating something from nothing, or we're adding something to shots that doesn't exist. And I think that's there's so many photographers that start off in the journalistic mindset where what they shoot is what they have, and they don't think I need to change something or fix something. It just, well, that's in the shot, so I'm going to keep it in there. And I think my perspective is that I'm creating art, and I don't care what's in the shot. I'm going to remove it if I don't want it, or I'm going to add something if I want it in there. With the caveat, I always tried to say that I've done something, so people don't look at it and say, oh, that's great. I'm glad you captured that great, I don't do Milky Way shots, but you see a lot of people capturing the Milky Way and the beautiful foreground, but they're 2 different shots, and they don't say that. Mm-hmm. I don't think it takes away from the shot, but I think it just honesty to say this is a comp,
right?
Or I created this image, something that says that you've done something to it. Because I
it wasn't that way out of the camera, which some people think.
Yeah, and part of what when I'm shooting is I'm not shooting what is there. I'm shooting what I see and what I feel, and that's a big difference because what we actually see and have in our own heads is a different reality from what other people are seeing.
Right. Well, that is a great lead in, and we didn't plan this, to the article that I had found of yours. Let's see if I do this right. Hey, I did. It's the sunset
That's
on
from my blog.
Yeah. So you do a lot of blogging on your site, and
I did for a whole year. I have not done as much as I used to. I had
and I want
365 project.
Yeah, that 365 project is awesome. I want to get to that a little bit later, and I guess this was part of that. But the timing on when I read this, and don't ask me for when that was, but the timing on when I read it was great. I was out shooting with my D700, and I, as a sports shooter who was shooting with 4 megapixel cameras and giving my images over to somebody else, there was no cropping because someone was going to want a 20 by 30 or 16 by 24 or whatever they're going to want. If you had already cropped it down, you were going to be in a world of hurt because it wasn't going to blow up very well. So I, was basically shooting and not cropping or very little editing. Now that I'm doing it for myself, I can do whatever I want. But I still have this ingrained in me: don't crop, don't crop, don't crop. And I one day I went and shot something and I cropped and I edited and did all this stuff, and it was just I felt so free. And around that same time, I read your article, and what your article is saying. Why don't you tell us about the article?
Well, I actually, it's been a while since that was. I think I shot that May a year ago, so I'm not remembering exactly. But
well, I can read it if you want.
Yeah, but because I did write 365 blog posts that year. Yeah. But when I'm shooting, I'll usually shoot loose and then crop to make it fit because I'm not too worried. I'm trying now when I'm cropping things to crop them in things that print well. Mm-hmm. I used to do was crop it whatever fits, but then when someone says I want a print of that, then I'm like, okay, well, how are we going to do that? Because custom prints can get expensive. So I try to keep that in mind, but I don't worry about getting it framed correctly in camera. Mm-hmm. I just think with the digital, you don't have to. I started out in film, but it doesn't make sense to me to try to get everything in there.
Now, the 700 is a 12 megapixel camera. Mm-hmm. Do you ever feel that, hey, I'm limited in how much I can crop because I'm starting with 12? Or do you feel that 12 is plenty, for the sizes I'm printing, I'm not really worried about it?
It depends on the image and depends on the level of detail. Stuff like landscapes, you don't want to crop too much with 12 megapixels because if someone wants a 36-inch print and you crop halfway in, it's going to be difficult to get that. Mm-hmm. However, there are some programs that out there that will help, that you can enlarge to a degree mm-hmm. that is pretty much seamless. I don't want to say that it's perfect because it's not. Anytime you enlarge it's algorithms and it's not, you're going to get noise.
Right.
But when you're doing the stuff that I do with all the atmospherics and lens flares and some topaz impression and glow effects, what I'll do is I'll say, okay, I know I want to make this bigger, so I'll enlarge it and then add my effects afterwards, and it covers that up.
Yep. Well, what this article, and I know probably most people are beyond this, but sometimes you look at photos and you go, like the one here, you go, wow, that is fantastic. And then you try and recreate it in real life and you can't get there. And you like you said earlier, you'd say when you've edited something, then really you should expect everything to be edited. And unless we're photojournalists, my feelings doesn't matter. And in this article, you talk about that. And a little bit lower down the article, you show this one where here's the end result of the photo. And then a little bit further down, there's the original as shot.
Big difference.
Yeah, it was a cloudy, cold day in May. That's along the Ice Age Trail, and I believe it's Kettle Moraine North here in Wisconsin. And I was hiking along, and so I said, "That's a cool bench," and I took the shot, not thinking. One of the things I do when I'm shooting is I almost always shoot brackets for HDR, and I do 32-bit HDR processing through a plugin from Photomatix. So I work with 32-bit in Lightroom. So it's not tone mapped. I just have a 32-bit file to start with, so I can really work with the tonal range. And so I shot, I'm looking at the images here. I actually shot 7 brackets for that one, which you really don't need to when it's that cloudy because it's such even lighting, but it's digital. Why not? I can throw away the ones that I don't use. And then I said, oh, let me play with it and started doing some stuff, adding some color to it. And I said, this looks really cool. And then I put a lens flare on there and I thought, wait a minute, that looks like the sun. So, and that's another thing is a lot of times I don't look at the image and say, oh, I'm going to do this and put the sun in there. It's all organic. I just start playing. And when, just let the muse strike, I guess.
And you probably have a little more experience than the rest of us because I don't think you said you mentioned Photoshop, but I don't think you said you started with version number 1.
No, he did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
But there were, when 1 came out, when I graduated from college, I wasn't working in a place that had Photoshop. And so it was, oh gosh, probably from there, probably 10 years, maybe 8 years before I used it again. So I got in, I think, right when they added the undo and layers, or somewhere around there.
Okay.
But that said, I don't know Photoshop. I mean, I do, but there are people out there that can say, "Oh, you do this and this," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even know that." And we mentioned AD. I'll mention him again. When I was in the Arcanum as an apprentice with him, he mentioned the content-aware fill, which I had been using Photoshop for many years up to that point and had never heard of it. And that just opened up so many doors.
Oh, yeah, that is awesome.
If you don't know it, look it up. That's a great tool to have.
It's only a couple of years old, probably 4 or 5 years now, the content aware, right?
Yeah.
It's not that old. I mean, I think about I probably didn't get into Photoshop until 5 or 6. I don't even remember when, but Lord knows if I use 10% of it, I'm probably lucky.
Yeah.
There's just so much in that.
Well, and now you can do video and 3D, and you can print 3D from Photoshop now, which is crazy.
Oh, that I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I feel my Photoshop skills have not improved much at all over the last few years because the reality is I'm spending so much less time in there. For a while, I was spending more time in there and slowly getting better. But now I'd spend so much of my time in Lightroom with hardly any time going back over there. But I wanted to show that article because it was a fitting transition to what you were saying, and it meant something for me, and that was why I put you in my list. And then,
so you put me on the list a little over a year ago.
Sometimes people are on the list for a long time. It doesn't mean anything about. It doesn't mean I'm waiting that guy. I'm not ready for that guy or anything like that. It's just I don't want. It's meant more when I put him on the list. I don't want to lose this person.
Right.
Because as I'm moving around, you never know. I get so much stuff that I might lose somebody.
Oh, I'm the same way with business cards. I've got stacks of business cards. I've said I was going to contact this person, but it's been 2 years.
Yeah. Well, the other side, like you didn't know until I just told you this. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if I saw the article the day you wrote it either, so it could have been less than that. Anyway.
Yeah, I was pretty good about blanketing social media whenever I posted one of those. Need to get the viewership up.
Yep. So you mentioned you shoot with the 700. What gear? What lenses? What lens are you using for mainly when you go to shoot?
Mike, I have a kit lens that I bought when I got my D70, and it's a 24 to 85. 3.445 or 3.545. It's not a great lens, and I think one of the way I develop my style right now is dealing with the limitations of the equipment. I know there's always this thing is we got to get the best, sharpest stuff, and I kind of coming from my 3D world where when we build something, we want to add noise to it to make it look real. Right. You've got to, for example, you're building a space scene. If you don't add some flair or something in there, it doesn't look right. Some noise, and so it doesn't bother me that sometimes my kit lens is not as sharp as it should be. and if I don't shoot a lot of night stuff because there's so much dust inside my lens that I get so much, and just if it was clean, I'm still get reflections, light flares inside the lens.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm shooting at night and I'm shooting into lights, there's so many lens flares in there that I can't remove them all. Which I think I need to actually go shoot some lights and just use the lens flares as a texture.
Well,
Gotta write myself a note for that one.
So as we're looking at some of the photos are streaming now as we talk. Keep in mind you're shooting with that 24-85 kit lens. It was my kit lens also when I first bought my first Nikon, which is D100. And like you, it's like sucks dust into the lens. It's this weird, stupid thing.
It's a vacuum.
And it's not. I don't know if it's worth sending off to get it clean. It's
if
just
you can stop this one, the flare and the flare and
am I on the right one?
And, yeah.
Okay.
The flare and the dust in here is 3D.
Wow. So the plant is real. The flare and the dust is all stuff you added afterwards.
That's cool.
In Photoshop?
Yeah, that's it. I created it in 3D and then added it in. Actually, I added it through Topaz Texture Effects.
Okay.
But it's something that I created. Yeah.
So
another one of the things that, I mean, again, I thought it was a cool shot. It was a macro shot that I did. That's actually the tiny little piece of a pea pod. So it's really small, a couple millimeters across. And then I added the other stuff to give it some more interest.
So a couple months ago, Tim, or when was it? We had the theme. We have a monthly photo contest, Scott, and we had a theme of minimalism or minimalist or something.
Minimalist.
Like that. Yeah, and AD kept pointing, saying, "Y'all got to go look at his webpage." So this is a perfect example of what he was talking about.
Less is more.
Yeah, less is more.
Yeah, it's. I don't know where that came from for me. It's happened in the last. Well, actually, it started in my 365 project, but I was looking back at some of my images from high school that were minimal then, and I think there's just something about stripping things down to the one story that I've always liked, and I think some of it might be too nowadays. With as crazy as our world is, that I want things to be simple in my art, Right.
He also, speaking of simple, he also said, AD said that you don't need to basically leave your yard to find all your subjects. Yeah,
I don't. I work from home, and so I don't get out as much as some other photographers that travel the world, and so I just walk. I'm little less than a mile from Lake Michigan. I am half a mile from the Milwaukee River, and there's parks on both sides, hiking trails, and then we have one of the sexiest buildings in the world is the Milwaukee Art Museum, which is down on the lakefront, which is fantastic. So, and I'll find stuff wherever it is. The banjo was shot in the Urban Ecology Center, which is down on the river here, so it's all walking distance from my house. So it's
the good thing is with your minimal photography, you're not capturing big things that you're going to get each time, because within that one scene that somebody else might get, you might have 10 different shots.
It was funny when I was in Chicago last year for a photo walk with AD and a couple other people from the Canon, and we were shooting downtown in Chicago, and we were near the Millennium Park, and they were shooting all the big structures, and I was turning around shooting a little light. They were laughing at me. They said, "There's Scott doing his light."
Well, I posted your 365, which we're going to get to in a little bit. I posted that album, the link to the album, and several places on our social media, and telling people, if you're struggling to find stuff to shoot, or if you're thinking, I don't live in these wonderful scenic places like New Zealand or Iceland or something like that, so I can't do these things. Well, yeah, you can't shoot Iceland unless you go to Iceland, but it doesn't mean you don't have things around you that you could shoot. And use Scott's album as inspiration.
You can always find something to shoot. If you start saying, I don't have anything to shoot, you're really not looking.
Yeah. And I've been one of those people who've struggled for a topic. So again, your article, I loved your article, and now I'm loving that 365 is really inspiration for a lot of us on things to shoot.
Well, there's the key is you have to shoot. You have to keep shooting, even if you think everything you shoot is crap. Keep shooting and always have your camera with you, because there's shots that I get that I wasn't planning on. There's a shot that we just saw of some folded paper. I was at the art museum with my son. He's 3.5, and we were doing. There was a thing on folding paper, and I started folding paper, and I thought, wait, that's really cool. So I got my camera because I had it with me and took the shot. So, but if you don't have your regular camera, your cell phone works as fine, because I've said it that the best camera you have is the one you have with you.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. I stopped on this one. I don't have one of these anymore, but it's you might have other things around your house. I know you did a 3D thing in one of your videos of the Rock'em Sock'em robots.
Yeah.
And you might have Rock'em Sock'em robots around the house, or you might have this Light Bright. And you look at it, and when you look at Light Bright, it is kind of cool, but you may not have thought of taking a photo of it. And here you go. Here's a fantastic shot of Light Bright.
That was we have a vintage Light Bright. It's still, and we still have some of the old. I don't know if you remember the templates. It's the black construction paper with all the little dots and the color. And I was doing this with my son, and we were just sticking colors in there. And I started to look at it, and I said, that kind of looks like Milwaukee or Chicago, the way there's, you got the city and then the suburbs on the side, and then the one side is the lake. And I said, that's really cool. So took a shot of it, and then just, yeah.
If we can go back to Juice out in YouTube chat has a question, I think about, nope, wrong one. Sorry, Juice. Where's that one? This one. His question was, what type of light was used? And this, again, I think you used, well, go ahead. Just answer the question.
Let me see if I can reach that light. I don't know where I put it. Oh, it's up there. I might see if my cord's strong enough to reach it. It was a single light.
Whoa. What?
It was this.
One of those clicking LED bulbs. I think I even have one of those. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a cheap thing we got for free. And it's really bright. And
good. My mother-in-law gave that to me for Christmas, so now I know it's a cheap thing.
Yeah, I had the. Well, I'll give you a sense of how small this thing was. I don't know if you can see the clip.
Right.
That's what that little piece of pea shoot was clipped to. Was on this, just way up there. And I have it on. I have a light stand. Put my camera on a tripod, and just did a light painting. So it was a really long exposure, and that was also focus stacked. I think I did probably 18 different shots of that. So, because when you're using, I have an extension tube that I use with some of my vintage lenses, and when you start to stop down, you lose the light.
Right.
And it's really hard to see sometimes when you're trying to focus. So focus stacking is just the way to go.
All right. So now let's talk about, I want to ask you a question about one of the subjects of I've seen it throughout some of your images here in the 365 project. And that is, what is the story with the little robot?
Actually, you can't. Let me see. You might not be able to see him. I think he's over my shoulder up there. But
yeah, I can't see him.
It's just something that that actually is something that I carry in my bag occasionally and just bring it out. But I've had that toy for a long time. I don't remember where I got it, and it's just something that I think is cool. And every once in a while, it's something that I go back to when I don't have anything to shoot. Okay. Sometimes I just say I'm going to put it up there and just see what I can make. And it's fun because he's got two sides. One's happy and one's sad, but I think he's cooler on the sad side. So
I don't know if I have any images of him here, so I may have to show it when we go look at your 365 thing.
Yeah, there's a couple shots in there.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a couple shots in there, and I'll do that as we're talking. All right. So that's the 365. So, going over and let me do this. Let me get us to your webpage. There we go. So I'm at your webpage. And if we go to portfolio and then 365 project. So what made you want to do a 365? I know people do a once a week project. which is hard enough. But you did a 365.
I found that I was having a tough time shooting every day, and I wanted to shoot every day. And so I thought, if I start a 365, start a blog, put it out there that I'm going to be doing a 365 and you should all watch, it kind of put a fire under me, saying people want to see this. I don't know if anybody ever did want to see it, but I put it out there, and it was more of just a motivation for me to get out and shoot. I think early on I started to do some images that people thought were really cool, and that kind of set the bar really high. So then there's some days I'm like, I don't know what I should do, but it's got to be cool because everyone's expecting cool now. So,
and here's the robot.
But yeah, it's the lonely robot photographer. My cable here is mixing up my back here, but I have that little camera up here somewhere, and the flash actually works on that, so which is cool.
Of course, this is my favorite one of the robot right here.
Yeah, that's a good trick is tinfoil.
That's tinfoil in the background?
Mm-hmm. Just I shot
that's
that.
Cool.
I shot that with I think that was with my 50. So I was at probably 1.8. I don't remember, but I have some gels, some very old brittle gels from, I don't know where I got them. My wife might have got them for me, but I just stuck it in front of a flashlight and to light the background blue.
That's incredible.
And there's a comp here because there's a light inside of the robot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I shot it without, and then I put my finger on it and lit it with, and then cropped my finger out.
Yep. So I'm trying to get to the bottom, but there's so many images here. 365. So I think that is a fantastic project. And again, I think if you're looking to do a 365, or if you're looking to just get inspiration, this album is great for that, because like you said, some days you struggle for what is the shot for today. Sometimes you're up late at night because you felt the pressure to get it done.
Yeah.
Now, were there times when you banked a few shots, like, hey, I know I'm going to be traveling. I think one of them, you said something about camping on one of them.
Yeah,
and
I did that. Yeah. Around Christmas, I did that. And there were a couple times we went on camping trips where I would get some shots. I also, because people said, oh, it's a 365 project, you have to shoot and something every day. And I said, well, it's my project and I'm making the rules. So
I love that.
My only rule is that something had to be newly processed. So there are a couple images in there that I were old shots that I reprocessed for the 365 project. That was rare, but that was when I really didn't have time, or it was something I really liked. And then there were a couple days where I didn't have anything. And so I would just write what day it was on a piece of paper and shoot it and process it. I did one on a chalkboard. I did one on a Post-it note. I did one on a calculator.
Well, we're obviously we can't go over every one of them, but I like that you started off with a family member and then ended with the family too. Mm-hmm. Did you have those bookends decided in your mind before you got started?
No, but I knew I wanted to start with my son. Okay. It was just, I thought that was a good start. And I knew toward the end, I knew I wanted to get a family shot for the end. It was interesting on the penultimate shot. I asked friends of mine in the Arcanum to give me some thoughts on what they would like me to shoot. And I said, it's got to be something mundane. And I got two suggestions: a water glass and toilet paper. And so I said, well, I'll combine them. So there's probably 15 or 16 different shots that I comped in here. It's a square of toilet paper and a shot glass full of water. And that was light painted with a pen light.
I was going to say it almost looks like from far away, almost looks like a magnifying glass until you look at the original picture. That's really cool.
The glass is faceted on the bottom, and that's where the flare is coming from the pen light. And then I used some gels. I did different colors, but I like the blue the best. So I actually was going through my Photoshop file for this, and there were a couple different colors, but I always ended up going back to the blue.
Blue is my favorite color, so I like it from that standpoint too. But I'm sure that whoever gave you let's see, what can we do to mess Scott up? There's no way he can make a good image out of this. Toilet paper and a glass of water. And then you come up with this, which, the subject matter is in and of itself is not that interesting, but with the way you did it and the way you put it together, you can see that in a gallery somewhere.
Yeah, this would be something that you would see. This isn't going to be on someone's living room wall unless it's an art collector or something. Right. I wasn't making this one thinking I was going to sell 100 copies of it. So,
and speaking of, have you ever done like art festivals or done anything like that with some of your work?
About 3 or 4 years ago, I did an art fair in Evanston, Illinois. Absolutely enjoyed it, but I realized then that to really do well with the art fairs, you have to do them all summer or all season.
Yeah.
And I wasn't committed to that. So I still have stock from that. If you go to my website, there's a page in there where you can actually buy some of the stock from that. I think it's called Artist Inventory, but I did that once. I really enjoyed it. But I think you really need to work a whole season with that to figure out what sells, what doesn't, how much stock to bring. And I've been in a couple shows. There are group shows around the area here in Milwaukee. I'm still looking for that solo show, but I keep waiting for the Milwaukee Art Museum to call me, and they haven't yet. So
just a matter of time. Just a matter of time, Scott.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to post for now for people who want to see this. I'll post it over here in the comments in all 3 locations. If you want to go check out Scott's 360 album, 365, not 360, 365 album, and what he did there. And while you're there, go check out some of his other portfolios there too. This one here, so by trade, I am an accountant, and HP12C, that's right up there, right up my alley. And it looks well used, actually. Some of the
it's vintage.
Yeah. Now, $349. That must have been the 349th day.
It was. That sits on my desk. I use that all the time, and I get so confused when I have to use a regular calculator because I'm so used to doing the. I think I don't remember what they call that method where you
Polish
type in the
logic or
number.
something? Yeah.
I think it's Swedish or something. I don't know, but you type in the number, hit enter, and then the next number, and then your operator. It's faster once you get used to it, but when you get to regular calculator, it messes up. But that was on the desk, and so I said, okay, $349. There we go.
When I was in college, some of the college students wanted to borrow my calculator. Hey, can I borrow your calculator? They would use it, and they would go, 4 plus
it's broken,
whatever, and say this thing is stupid. And then you give it back, so you never had to really have anybody borrow your calculator. So I liked it from that standpoint too.
I can't even remember the last time I used a calculator like that.
Yeah, it's not been that long for me. But go through here when you have a chance and look at his images, everything from bubble wrap to buttons to just things around you. You didn't take like 50 of the calendar. I mean, you were creative in a lot of these things. There were
a lot of shots of me. There were about 30 shots of me in there.
There's shots of you. There's shots of your son. There's all kinds of stuff. Shots with your cell phone.
There were a couple in there with the cell phone. Yeah. Every day I always have my cell phone, and there were times that I didn't have my camera with me and saw a shot and said, "Oh, I'll take it and see what happens."
I'm looking for one. Is the Etch-a-Sketch one of your 365 shots? Yeah,
it is.
There it is. Okay, and we're gonna do a little more with this shot here. Let me bring it in. So this Etch-a-Sketch shot with your hand doing the etch on the left hand side, and then the sketch doing it from inside the sketch. What do you think of that, Tim?
That is cool.
Isn't that cool? So can I show?
Now, where did you get? I mean, is that also a vintage one, or? Because I know they started selling them after it was Toy Story, but
I've had that one for 25 years.
Okay.
So I guess that would be considered vintage. If I bought it when I was an adult, I don't consider it vintage, but I'm getting to the point now where things that I bought as an adult was a long time ago. So
No, that's a cool shot. Now, how did you do that to get a? Is that a composite of your picture that you just put in?
I'm going to show
it's
it.
that, yeah. I actually sent some behind the scenes on this one, so we can go through those. But yeah, I shot myself, and it was a difficult shot because to get my body just right, that's just a shot of the Etch-a-Sketch and just simple.
Now,
I don't even. I think that's too.
I love the next shot I'm about to show. Hold on. This is Scott getting the form.
And I use Topaz Remask to do the masking, and it's fantastic.
Oh, I love Remask. That is great.
But to get this shot, to get it just right, I had to. It was difficult to move and get it just right, where it looked like my arm was resting and over. I had to get it just right, and that's it. It doesn't look as awkward. I guess it's like when you're getting your portrait done and they tell you to move your head and your shoulders and you feel really awkward. That is a very awkward position to be.
Now, did you use the corkboard to set yourself up for that also as a framing reference?
No. That's just in my office.
Okay.
And you got to have the tongue sticking out too, right?
Oh yeah. That was planned.
So that's that. Then we have this one where you're starting to blend them together.
Yeah, that was just to get placement.
Yeah.
And before I did a whole bunch of Topaz effects, and I don't remember which ones I used here. But I was really trying to get that Etch-a-Sketch look, and it's a very difficult look to get where it's a single line. So I just said, well, I'm going to cheat. Make it. But it needed to be charcoal because I was trying to get the. If you make it just black and white, it doesn't look right because it has to be that faded gray look.
Right.
Now we got the hand out.
And added the shadows so it matches. And getting my fingers just right to fit because I would get a shot and then would place it and say, okay, that one doesn't work. Get a shot. Okay,
now
that
you
one
have to.
work.
Now you have to redo yourself.
Yeah.
It's smaller.
Yeah, then I was doing, this is where I was messing with cropping. And that's the beauty of doing some of the stuff that I do on white is I can move everything around. And originally I shot this with my hand already on the Etch-a-Sketch. And I said I didn't like it. So I shot my hand separate. Did a whole bunch of color correction on the hand, removing some of the spots, make my hand a better hand model than.
Yeah, because we go back to the first one. I can see some of the spots around the knuckle.
Yeah.
That you're talking about?
Yeah.
And then here, yeah. Look at that.
Smooth out the skin tone there. It's a technique that portrait photographers will use to when they're airbrushing is to.
And I like how you had your hand, the hand coming out of the Etch-a-Sketch goes from the charcoal to the flesh toned.
Yeah.
That
fantastic.
really makes the shot great.
I added some shadows under the Etch-a-Sketch too, just to give it a little bit more weight, because it was without. And I added a little bit of a vignette, which focuses in on the object there.
And then here, and then the final.
A little bit of a vintage color there, or cinematic. I don't know what you would call that. But yeah, that was a fun one, and that one took that one I worked on all day. I think that was a weekend. I don't remember exactly, but. That was a fun.
It would have been all month for me.
All right, I gotta make sure I got the next one in order. GH. Yep. All right, so then you did one. I'll show the final result first, and then we'll work our way backwards. Want me to do it that way, or you want me to show?
We can start with the final.
Okay. So this one here, which is 3 sets of your hands. Right?
Say no.
Yeah.
Hear no evil.
Yeah. Okay. That and what was interesting is. I've used this one recently as commentary to current events.
Okay, so
I'll leave it at that.
All right, so we start off with hands over the eyes.
Yeah, my office. At one point, I had my office was next to my son's room when he was younger, and so I needed a sound break. So I put up a big canvas on the wall, and that was my backdrop.
Then you add
I shot 3 different shots here and then started I cut out my arms for this one, and then just placed it on top.
Now, what I want to watch as we go through this is the new hands over the old hands. You can definitely see that this is, just placed over top of it.
Right.
And how much better it's going to get as we go through it. So, all right, here's the next shot, which is the hands over the mouth. That one,
this one
fits in good all by itself.
I had to do a lot of work with my fingers, and especially my thumbs on this. I didn't actually show that in this before and after because it's kind of subtle, but I actually did some liquify work and a whole bunch of really fine paint work to get these to all match. And because it's 3 different shots, I was trying to stand in exactly the same place, but I had to move them, and it's cropped the way it is because I needed to get my body just the same. So when I cut the hands out, I could move the hands a little bit too.
Yeah. Right, up next, you switch the hands over the eyes to be in front, and the hands over the ears be behind.
Yeah.
And that right there already, it already is looking
right. That
natural.
Looks much better.
Yeah.
Right.
If you didn't know those were the same person's arms, that could be, 3 different sets. All right. The next.
Then I added a texture to the background. I use flypaper. It's one of the add-ons for Adobe for Photoshop.
Flypaper.
I think that's what it's called. But you can add textures, and it does a really nice job of bringing the textures in there. And again, I had to cut myself out. Did that with a Topaz Remask.
Very good. And now we get some. I like the skin tone in this already. This is good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was. That's a couple different things. I use. There's a adjustment layer called Color Lookup. If you've never used that, it's something you should try because you can get some really cool color effects very quickly. I always say that you need to learn how to use all of the curves and levels and all that. Need to know how all those things work. But once you do know how to use those things, it doesn't matter if you want to do a shortcut. So use the plugins or this thing because it gets you to where you want to go faster. I know that as a purist, it's like you don't need plugins for that. It's like, well, I'm not. It's not the process. It's the image at the end. So
yeah.
So I use some of that for the color, and then also there's a lens flare that I added in the upper right here.
Oh, we'll go back. Yeah. See, I could stop right here. This one right here is done to me. This looks great. But then we got more.
It probably was done, and then I came back to it. Because that's another thing that I do is I'll stop and walk away and then come back.
Right. So here's the next thing. So we go from here to here.
And it's like, I
like this one too.
Yeah, I like that one better.
Yeah, I don't remember what. This is just more color correction on that one.
Right now we come to this. This is the problem. At every stage in these last 5, it's like, this is great. I can stop right here.
Your image will never be perfect.
Yeah.
You have to.
And it's very subjective.
Yeah,
it is.
You have to get used to being better.
Mm-hmm.
There was a guy that I used to work for in 3D. It was he always said good, better, and best. You got to aim for better because you're never going to have your best. It's never going to be perfect.
Right. And then the final one, let's see. What changed in the final one?
I think I actually sent it twice.
Oh.
So.
Okay, so that was the final one.
And if there was something, it was probably
good eye, Mike.
It was probably a spot or something, because that's something I do throughout the images. When I first start, I'll do my border patrol and look for spots.
Border patrol.
As you know, with the D700 and that lens, you're going to get spots.
Yeah.
So I'll do that, but as I go, I'll see things, and I don't mind removing if there's a freckle, or there's a blade of grass that just draws my eye, or if I'm using a texture and there's something in the texture that just if it's distracting, take it out. Simplify. Whatever your subject is, try to force what you're doing as an artist is forcing the viewer to see what you want them to see. And the way to do that is through composition, with the simple rule of thirds or the golden spiral or what have you, with the vignettes, with color, with light. decide what you want to show, and then force the viewer to see it.
Yeah. Very good. Now, you mentioned a lot about using Topaz. So use the Topaz products, and
I do.
Do you use anything else like Nick or anything like that?
I use Nick effects, and I'm going to use them until it doesn't work.
Yeah. You saw that announcement, I take it.
Yeah, I did. I know people are really upset about that, but I've seen that coming since Google bought them. Yeah. I've had experience with some of my 3D software where another company buys it and the writing's on the wall. They say, "Oh, we're not going to change anything." It's like, yes, you are. You're buying it for. Yeah. They bought the Nick effects because of Snapseed, and that's fine. But I use that, and I also use the On1 suite. And there's some various little plugins here and there that I use too, but those are the main ones.
I think what people don't think about when, let's say, a Google who buys Nick, is the staff, the creative people who created Nick may not stay there. So really the heart and soul of the product is gone. And
well, my understanding is a lot of those folks went to McFun.
Yep. So that heart and soul goes there, and now that's where the development's going to happen. So, and you get somebody like Google who's so huge, unless this thing's making enough money, it's just a matter of time before they're going to kill it, because they don't have that heart and soul to keep it going.
It's not part of their bottom line. So when they made it free, I said, okay, they're not going to give away software and then develop it.
So many people are looking for. I see this in the podcast industry, and also to a lesser degree in the photo industry. Free is just if you're not paying for it, then you are the product. Yeah, that's the way to look at it. And so you got or else that company's going to be out of business before long. Yeah, free is not a business model that works.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
And photographers, listen, don't give away your stuff for free.
Don't give away your stuff for free. All right, that is awesome stuff. I love looking at the before and afters on the bench one and in those three. Thanks for sharing those two. Thanks for sharing that with us and seeing each one of those steps on how you created that. I don't think I can do it myself, but it's interesting to see somebody else
behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes, I love behind the scenes shots.
It's all about practice. It's just I've been doing stuff like that for so long with my other job. My I don't want to call it my real job but my other job. I've been doing that for so long that it just becomes second nature to solve problems. A client comes in and says, we want this thing to do this and turn and look like this. And you're like, okay, I have no idea how I'm going to do that. So you start experimenting.
Now, I imagine when you're doing a 365 project, that becomes a part of your life. Yeah. 365 days, you're thinking about it, you're processing it, you're posting it. And you didn't just post an image on Facebook. You wrote a small article with each image and put it on, blogged it on your site. How does that, when it ends, do you feel like something's missing and now I need a project to replace it?
I didn't at first, but I look at my images for the month of October of last year and through the end of the year, and I didn't shoot much. And I think it was I didn't have the motivation to do something every day, and I was missing it. Yeah. So there was some of that, but there's also I'm sitting in front of my computer for 3 or 4 hours every night, and it was too much time in here and not enough time with my family. Yeah. I would usually start it when my son went to bed, but my wife was still awake. So
it does cut into the family time.
Yeah. So she was very supportive, but she was also glad to see it end.
Yeah. So. But you're still doing some blogging on your site with some of your images too, right?
Anytime I find something that I think is postable, if it's not just something I throw up on Facebook, but if it's going to go on my website, I'll usually write just a really quick blog, even if it's just picking a quote that I like that goes along with it or some music lyrics or something. I think it helps to tell a little bit of a story. They say pictures are 1,000 words, but I like to add some words to my pictures. Yeah. Here and there. So. Absolutely. I guess, if someone comes to the website, it gives them something to look through too.
Yeah. No, I like looking at that. And for other photographers who are thinking about getting some traffic to their site and having a little article along with your photo will help drive some of that traffic. And especially if you do it on a regular basis. And when you look at your blog, you're not having to write. This is what I'm bad about is I have so many ideas in my head of things articles I want to do, but then as I start down it, I start down this path of research and making sure I have every little thing right, and it's going to turn into a 100-hour article that I'm never going to write and it's never going to get published.
Right.
But I like the approach of just doing it, just getting stuff out there, and not having to write a novel with each image.
Yeah, and writing is not my strong point. So
Mine either.
I actually learned a lot from writing. I think the key is write the way you talk. Be yourself. Don't try to, think I'm going to be Hemingway today, and or just write. Because I think when it comes to art, you look at many of the great photographers and artists and musicians and people and actors. I think people are attracted to personality along with the art. There's a lot of starving artists that are great, but they don't have people don't know the personality. So I think if you share some of who you are, people have a little bit more of an emotional connection to that. And I think it's just, there's a lot of, I just probably not a good example, but you look at some of the rock stars and their beautiful model wives, and you think, and it's that, and I think some of it is just are attracted to something that a talent. I'm not saying that I'm talented in any ways, but you can kind of get the idea of when you get to know a little bit more about the artist, the art becomes more attractive.
Yeah. True. Very true. All right. So actually, I'm looking at the clock. We're already at 9:30. So we're going to start heading into the post, not the post show, the home stretch. We'll say the home stretch. The home stretch.
Down the stretch they come.
Wow. The time has flown by already. So one of the things we do toward the end of a show is talk about some of the stuff you carry with you. Call it what's in your camera bag. So if you wouldn't mind sharing a few things that you might carry along with you. And while he's doing that, anybody out in any of the chats, if you have a question for Scott, put it in the chat and I'll try and get it in there.
Well, one of the things is my robot, which I was pointing over there earlier. He's right up. No, he's
up
up
the
there.
Side, right there, right with the fingers. Yep.
Right there.
I see him.
He's usually in my bag. And mostly it's just my lenses, because I don't really have much. This is one of my favorites. This is a 105 f2.5. It's got the the hood on it. Mm-hmm. It's vintage. It's got the f-stop ring on it.
Yeah.
So there's no autofocus, but I rarely use autofocus.
And it has the back cap is different. They don't make them like that anymore either, do they?
No.
Yeah, I have one like that too.
But sometimes when I want to play around and not use a filter in Instagram or something like that, I've got a couple of these. Let me see if turn that so you can read it.
I can't.
Oops.
Other way.
I'm not looking at my camera. You probably can't read that. It's a Diana Plus.
I saw a D.
It's a lomography lens. And it's plastic.
Whoa, plastic.
Yeah. I was going to say that's wide angle.
It is. This is a telephoto, actually. It's a 110 millimeter soft telephoto. But the Diana cameras are analog, and it uses a larger format. And so putting this on my camera is like crop sensor. But it's got a little plastic adapter that you can buy on Amazon for a couple bucks from the lomography to Nikon or Canon or whatever. And it's soft. It's got light leaks. But I got that one, and I also have
wait, the when you say it's plastic,
the fisheye.
What is plastic on it? The body, but
everything.
Even the glass is plastic.
The glass is plastic. Yeah. It's not high quality at all.
So what are the images that you get with that?
Well, there's on both of these lenses. There's you can kind of adjust the focus, but the aperture is fixed, so you get what you get, and it's soft and it's uneven. And the more you leave this out in the hot and use it, it will move.
Warp.
And yeah. And that's the beauty about the lomography cameras, is they're made to not be light tight. So you get some weird light effects on the film. I don't have any of those lenses. I mean, those cameras, but these lenses are cool. And if you want to get some cool effects without having to go in and put in filters, you can do that with this. It has a kind of a soft focus look, especially the telephoto, which is kind of cool. It's almost like a pinhole. That's also in my bag, but I don't have it. I took one of my body caps and made a pinhole camera out of it. So I've got a digital pinhole.
Digital pinhole.
Yeah, I just a little piece of copper, put a very tiny pinhole in it, and I sacrificed one of my body caps, cut a hole in it, put the tin on there, and taped it in, and stick it on.
I know where you can get a new body cap that is got your logo on it.
Oh, that's cool.
It's a guy that was out in chat. He's probably left now because he knows I'm about to say this. Guy A.D. Wheeler, who prints those things. And if you say the magic words to him, he may be able to print a body cap for you with Scott Norris photography on it.
Yeah, I might have to hit him up for that. I know people have asked him to print lenses for him, and he said, "Well, I can do that. You just can't afford it."
print a lens?
Yeah.
Okay.
It just.
Yeah, I don't know how that would work.
Well, all you got to do is he's got to find the model for it and find all the stuff. It would be too expensive.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Well, that's some cool stuff, Scott. Thanks for sharing that with us. I have never seen a plastic lens. I definitely have not used one before, but it sounds very interesting. And all you need is an adapter to fit that onto a Nikon body.
Yeah, and you can buy all this stuff on Amazon. Just search for Diana Plus. And then usually it'll show what other people have bought, and usually those adapters will come right up. And it's not a tight fit; it's kind of loose.
Yeah.
And you have to be careful when you use these, because you got to clean these, because the dust will come off of these things and get sucked right onto your sensor. So. Yeah.
So, are you more into the vintage glass? Are you looking to buy any? Newer glass, or and also on the body, the 700. Are you looking to stay with the 700 or 750, 810, or waiting for what's next?
When the money comes, which I don't know when it will be, I'm torn right now, because I've had a chance to use the Sony A7R II, and I loved that camera. Yeah. Especially since the vintage lenses, just about any vintage lens with an adapter will work. I really like that. But that would mean, for the most part, updating my entire kit. So I'm not sure that money is going to be there. But if I was going to update, I would probably go with the 750. I don't need 100 megapixels or whatever. I think the 750 is 24 megapixels. It might be 36. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's in a 24 range. Yeah.
Yeah. And lenses, I'm always. I make do with what I have. I've got my 50. It's just awesome. This is one of the very first autofocus lenses, because I moved from Canon to Nikon, and I've got an f2 and an FM2. So that was I said I needed a 50, and they said, well, this one, it focuses really fast even without the autofocus. So I got that. But my wish list is a 14 to 24, 24 to 70, and 70 to 200. All 2.8.
Was that the Holy Trinity?
Yeah. I just don't have $7,000 to plop down on lenses right now. So
yeah, you're getting some of those, and each one of those that you mentioned are not cheap.
Yeah. Well, if Nikon is watching, I'm willing to endorse your product.
Yep. And you've shown what you can do with kit lenses and stuff, which is incredible. Mm-hmm. And the 50 is not an expensive lens either. So you do prove the point that it's the photographer, not the gear. Not that you can't do other things you can't take great shots with good gear, but it also is the photographer mainly and not the gear.
The gear will only get you so far.
Right.
You can get the cameras that have the perfect autofocus, and you put everything in manual. I mean, in the program, or professional mode, and you can get some okay shots. But the next level comes from in here, and the equipment won't get you past a certain point.
And I know that probably a lot of people, Tim, will like this, are having that same thought. A lot of Canon users, a lot of Nikon users are having the same thought you're having. Is, should I look at Sony and go that route? And we've mentioned this before. They've overtaken the number 2 spot. I mean, taking it from Nikon. Nikon's number 3. I think there's room in the market for all 3.
I agree.
I mentioned when Scott and I were talking before the show that the way I got my 70-200 Nikon lens, which is a fantastic lens, by the way, the f2.8 lens for Nikon, was because one of the guys I was shooting with when I was shooting soccer decided Canon had better noise performance than Nikon, and they did at the time. I'm selling all my gear, and he had a lot of gear. And I'm going over to Nikon. I'm going over to Canon. So he goes over there, and I got 2 SB800s, which are the flashes, another D2H, and a 70-200 lens, all for really good prices. And he was meticulous about keeping up with his stuff, so it was in great shape. And then a year later, Nikon came out with a camera that he thought had better noise and switched back. So I have no doubt that some people will switch over from Nikon or Canon over to Sony. And eventually some of that will switch back and there'll be some ebb and flow there. And Sony may ultimately end up as number 1. But I think there's a market for at least 2 positions and probably 3. And maybe the Olympuses and the Fujis and all those guys just always remain a distant 4th or whatever. Mm-hmm. But, there's room in the market for those guys.
I think so. I've heard people complain. They say, well, I love the Nikon sensor. And I'm thinking, do you know who makes the Nikon sensor? It's Sony.
Yeah. I think the problem for Nikon may be if someday down the road, Sony decides, you're on your own.
Yeah.
But
I'll be okay.
Yeah. So anyway,
what made you switch from Canon to Nikon?
When I went to college, the yearbook staff was all Nikon. And in school, I had an A1 program, but for our class, the school had cameras that we had to use because they're all the same. There were the Pentax K1000, which is a tank of a camera. It is so simple to use. The only thing in there that moves, except for the pressing the shutter, is the light meter, and it was just a needle. It was so simple, and that was part of the class. Is they wanted you to have a simple camera so you could focus on just taking the shots. So that's how I used.
I forgot about that little pin inside the lens, it's the viewfinder. My God, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, but then I was really good friends with the sports photographer there in College Station when I went to school, and he was upgrading to an F3, I think. So I bought his F2, and then I bought an FM2 after that. So those cameras they're sitting in a box now, but they still work. I just I don't shoot film, so
it's probably harder to find film than to get the camera to work.
It's getting it developed too, especially if you're shooting black and white. I've got a full darkroom set up downstairs. A good friend of ours donated her dad's stuff to me, and I just don't have space for it. But I've got a color enlarger and all the stuff, and a black and white enlarger. And one of these days, I'll have room and I'll set all that up and get back. I won't do the color again. I did that in college, and that's enough. That's what computers are for.
Yeah. Well, so Scott, what is next for you? You finished the 365 project. Where do you see your photography going in the future?
I've gone down the minimalist hole here, the rabbit hole, and I still want to pursue that, but I'd like to get more into doing themes. So where I pick a subject and I've already started that on a couple. There's a couple. I have chairs, and I call it a place to sit, and I've got 3 in that series right now. I actually want to get out and shoot some landscapes, because while it's nice to be able to shoot the minimalist stuff on my light stand, I'm aching to get outside. And but I want to do something different with the landscapes too, is try to find a minimalist way to shoot landscapes. So I don't know if that's going to work, but that's kind of where I'm going right now with all that. I'll still continue with the, pardon me, with the minimalist, because it's fascinating to take something that is mundane, or something that it's very familiar, and put it in a setting that is completely off.
Well, yeah, and I need to look at your site and study it and come up with ideas, because I'm watching it now. The one we had before that, I don't know what that was.
It was a lamp,
which was just, God, yeah, very creative ideas and a lot of inspiration, and gives a lot of us ideas. So again, go over there and check that out. So as we wrap up the show here, I want to go over a few things. Scott, thanks for coming out. And
my pleasure.
Yeah, a lot of fun talking to you. I love looking at the behind the scenes in your photos and all that. So with that, we finished the May one. We finished the May contest. People are voting on it. We're in the middle of voting on a topic for June in our main group. And when I get done here with this show, I'm going over to our Facebook group, and whatever the one that has the most votes, and unfortunately right now, I know AD's not going to like this, but the top vote right now is open, so you can do anything. So if we end up with open, and that's what yours is, or the second place one, which was peaceful, that could win.
That's what I voted for.
Yeah. So either one, go over to Scott's your portfolio there and there's some great ideas for either one of those. Open, of course, could be anything, but a lot of great ideas for that. If you want to enter that, let me get the web page up. There's multiple ways you can enter. Let's see. I'll show it to you in just a second. Here we go. All right, you could enter through our Facebook page, our web page, not our Facebook page. And either enter the beginners contest, and they are open, no theme. That's what they wanted. That's fine. And then this one will probably end up open too. So either one, you can join the regular one or the beginner group, whichever way you want. Just click on this. It'll take you to a form you can enter. Or probably the easier way is to go to the group itself. And let's do this. Let's check what the vote is right now. So this is our Facebook group. Just go to JPEG to RAW. Just go to facebook.com/group/JPEG to RAW, and you will see the vote right now is, open is going to win. And that's going to be the theme. But we'll put an album at the top. You go to that group and enter the photo into the album, and you enter for the month. It has to be taken within that month to win, to enter. So you can do it there or in our beginners group. I don't have an album up there for them. Yeah, I do. There you go. So here's the album for that group, and somebody's requesting to join, so I'll do that when we get done. Either beginner group or the regular group. Probably the best thing to do is when you go to Facebook, just search for JPEG to RAW, because we also have a sports group and a boudoir group. So if you want to join any of those and contribute there, it would be great to have you over there. If you want to get the show recorded, the recorded version of this, we're on iTunes, Stitcher. Let me get my list. Hold on. I'll forget something. For the video portion, we're on iTunes, YouTube, and Vimeo. For the audio portion, we're on Stitcher, Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Podomatic, Podbean, and Google Play Music. So just about everywhere. I'm getting distracted. So the best thing to do is subscribe to that show. We have a video large on the video ones for iTunes, a video large feed, a video small feed, and an audio feed. You can get any one of those you want. You can also subscribe on YouTube. You won't get it downloaded, but you'll get notified whenever we do that. Go over there, subscribe to our YouTube page. We'd love to have you subscribe to the YouTube page. We're getting close now to 9,000 or so, Tim. I can't remember where we're at. Closing in on that number. So come over there, and we'd love to have you be part of the group. I can't watch chat and talk at the same time. So until next week, we're out. I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I'm out. So we'll be back in a couple weeks. And AD and I need to set up a a showtime for the review of the May photos. I think you watched one of those, Scott, where mainly AD, we give feedback and on the images, some of the images entered into those photo contests I mentioned earlier. And, we pick about 10 of them, and AD goes down them and critiques them. And he has such a great way of doing it, where critiquing is a skill set. If you are critical of somebody, they may not want to ever enter again and say, that's it, I'm out, and go back into the hole. Because people get really attached to their image, and it's like their baby. And it's not everybody. Some people can be overly critical of their images, and that's how they improve. Others don't want to hear, especially if you're taking it of a child, they don't want to hear any critical feedback. But AD does it in such a great way that it helps you understand how to improve the photo, but and gives you that feedback without feeling like he's being critical. So
hey, you walk away thinking, oh, that was a great critique, and now I have something to work on.
There you go.
And that is, I was blessed to be in his cohort in the Arcanum. I mean, I don't think I'd be where I am now at this point without his help. So I'll put a plug in there. If you haven't watched that show with AD, you need to, because you'll get some great nuggets of information.
Well, watch our Facebook page for when that's going to go live. We'll do that here not too long. Scott, thanks for coming out. I see now Lisa is out. Lisa Speckman is out in our Facebook chat, and she says you need to come out to California. She's inviting you out to California.
I have a few people to stop. She's on the list of people to visit when I get out there.
Jan in YouTube says, thank you for sharing your photos, Scott.
My pleasure.
Yep. Love seeing those. And see, we only showed a very, very small portion of them. Go out to his website. You'll see more. I have the links to all these things, all the links I can find of yours. I will put it in the show notes. That will be out by the weekend or later. We'll have that out. If you want to get the recorded version, it's out there too. I've recorded this, and we should be out, at least a YouTube portion, by this weekend. So until next show, keep it raw. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.